All right, we're going to break in now to this press conference. We will go live. You can see Hunter Yurachek there getting ready to speak alongside the interim head coach of the Razorbacks, Barry Lundy Jr. Let's go live to that press conference right now.
You're not holding that against me, are you? Okay. Everybody ready? Well, good afternoon, and I would be remiss if I didn't start today, Veterans Day, by taking this opportunity with the platform I have to thank the men and women who proudly serve our country and who have proudly served our country and provide us the freedom that we all enjoy to do what we all enjoy doing. So to the men and women who have served our country and are currently serving our country, thank you. It's been a tough couple of days for myself and all associated with the Razorback football program. I made a decision that there needed to be a change in the leadership of our program, and I want to thank Chancellor Steinmetz, President Bobbitt, Chairman Goodson, and the System Board of Trustees for their support of that decision. I do firmly and confidently believe it was the best professional decision and the best decision for our Razorback football program at this time. What makes it really challenging for someone that sits in my chair is the personal impact that I know my decision has and will have on the men and women that work in our football program right now, their spouses and their children and their families, and the impact that I know this decision has on them. I thought our football program had taken some steps backwards in the past few weeks. I had one goal for our football program, one main goal for our football program as we headed into this season. It was a simple goal. I wanted us to be competitive game in and game out. Not to win the Southeastern Conference, but to be competitive game in and game out. And I think that was clear over the past couple of weeks that we were no longer competitive. And a big thing about that is our student athletes. Those 120 men worked their tails off for 9 months to have the reward and the opportunity to put on that uniform on 12 Saturdays during the fall. And that should be a rewarding experience for them. That should be something that they enjoy. And as I spent time with our student athletes before, during, and after games, I got the sense that they were no longer enjoying that experience on Saturdays. And our focus of our Department of Athletics day in and day out is on the success of our student athletes, all 465 of those student athletes. And we had 120 student athletes within our football program that were no longer experiencing the success I thought they needed to experience. Barry Lundy's a former student athlete. He's a Razorback through and through. When I called him yesterday morning and told him the decision I'd made with the change in the leadership, and I asked Barry to step up, and I asked Barry under very tough circumstances to take on the leadership of our football program. And without pause, he told me yes. I know I will get Barry's best during the next 3 weeks because he loves his football program, he loves this university, he loves this state, and he's invested in what we're trying to do. And I know he truly loves the 120 men that he's now leading within our football program. As I begin this search, I have no doubt that we will have a very strong candidate pool for this head coaching position. Why do I believe that? First, we are the University of Arkansas. We have a very proud and storied tradition within our football program that includes 42 bowl games, a national championship, 13 conference championships, multiple All-Americans and Hall of Fame inductees. We have and we offer our student athletes some of the best facilities in the country. We compete in the Southeastern Conference, and we have a passionate fan base that so desperately wants for this program to be successful. We've had many of our athletic programs currently that are competing on a national level and winning national championships within our athletic department. Our football program can be one of those programs.
Thank you, Hunter. Coach Lund.
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks to Hunter for the opportunity and the belief that he had in me to be able to be the guy to step in. As he said, they're under very difficult circumstances. There's other guys on our staff that obviously could have been capable of doing the same thing, and so I appreciate the opportunity that Hunter's given me. Obviously would be remiss without thanking Chad for 2 years ago when he came in and transitioned from our staff from Brett Bielema to think enough of me to be able to keep me and to be a part of this program and school that means so much to me and my family. So I'm be very always grateful for that from Coach Morris. I couldn't help but to think and get a chuckle today as I was thinking about the press conference today, to think about 27 years ago. As a football player here, I was kind of thrust into a similar situation. And for those that weren't around during that time, I know Bob and Mike and Otis and Nate, and I may be missing a few other guys. When Joe Kynes so famously took over as the interim coach in 1992, at his press conference, he was asked about being the interim, and he quipped, "We're all interim." And I think he said it best. At that point in time, his attitude was one that was incredible to watch as a player, to watch him step in during that time. We had just come off a loss to the Citadel, which obviously was a black guy on our program, and we didn't even know who the coach was going to be at that point in time as players. We experienced all the range of emotions that our guys are going through right now, the confusion, the disappointment, anger, happy, sad, mad, whatever they are, all those range of emotions are on our football team right now. I experienced those same feelings, and as I was telling the players last night, I learned and I saw firsthand what it looked like for a guy that was appointed as an interim coach to come in and to right the ship and to breathe life into our football players. And a little bit of a different circumstance because he had, basically the bulk of the year. But as I told our players last night, and make no mistake about it, this is all about our players. This is all it's about. It's about giving them their best opportunity to succeed these last couple of weeks. It's all about them. And as I told them last night, one of the things that I gleaned from that experience was whether you were a senior on that football team in 1992 or a freshman, man, there were some good things that came out of that. Those seniors that were a part of that team in 92 that went on the road to play Tennessee and beat them when they were 6-0, number 4 in the country. 27 years later, still people talk about that game to those people that are part of being as seniors on that football team. And the freshman class that was a part of that team, as we all know, the same team that lost their head football coach, they stuck together, they weathered the storm, and 4 years later, that same team was the bulk of the team that went to the SEC championship game. So I used that as an experience last night to relate to these players, to help them understand I know what they're going through. And so because of all those circumstances, the things I've gone through in my time here, obviously Hunter felt I was the right guy for this moment, and there's no doubt in my mind that I am the right guy in this moment. And this is all about our players. And so our job and my job is to make sure that these next few weeks that we figure out a way to play like Razorbacks. And we've lost that the last few weeks. And we're going to do our darndest and everything we can to pump some life back into these guys and go and play our best football game of the year when we go to Baton Rouge in a few weeks.
Thank you, Coach Lunny. Again, we'll take questions for Hunter, and then we'll come back and with questions for Coach Lunny in a bit. We'll start here on the front with Tom.
Hey, Hunter, when did you make the decision to pull the trigger on Chad? And what can you tell the fans about your pool of candidates that you, I'm sure, already have in mind?
Sure. Well, I made a definitive decision, Tom. After the game Saturday night, I went up and visited with the chancellor at his residence and made a recommendation to him that he passed on to President Bobbitt and the board. And so that's when definitively the final decision was made. And as will be the case throughout this entire process, I'm not going to comment on anyone who could or will not be a potential candidate for this job, other than to say we will have a very strong candidate pool.
Hunter, I guess the reports were out there that Chad's buyout was a little over $10 million, and I guess there's been other reports he might take a lump sum. Can you clarify what's going on with his buyout? Just how tough is that to have to pay, I know lots of schools are doing it, but how tough a deal is that to pull the trigger when you know you might have to pay all that money?
Sure. Well, we will follow Coach Morris's employment agreement, which does not include a lump sum payment, so he's got 4 years remaining on his contract, so we will pay him per his contract 70% of his contract value over the course of the next 4 years, and there's also a duty to mitigate within that. And obviously it's a challenge for us to take that money from somewhere and apply it to a buyout. And so, but we've got a great chief financial officer who has assured me that we have the means to do so, and it was comfortable making that change because of that.
And I understand you're not going to give us a list of names, but do you feel like it's important you get a guy that's a sitting head coach? Would coordinators be considered? Maybe guys, former head coaches who have been out of the business for a while. Just what kind of pool are you looking at?
All of the above, Bob. I mean, I want to get the best person in here to lead our football program. So on that list you mentioned, current sitting head coaches, coordinators, former head coaches, all of those will be considered.
Okay, we're going to go here real quick.
Barry, what was the players' response?
Hunter at this point.
Oh, just Hunter.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Bob took my question.
Okay, let's go next.
All right.
Go ahead.
It's surprising that Bob took somebody's question.
We'll come back. Go ahead, Nick.
Just after 2 coaches and 2 huge buyouts, does this kind of change what you may do for your contract for your next coach, and just regarding the buyouts and situation?
Well, I mean, the buyout situation throughout college athletics, I don't think is great. I mean, there's huge buyouts in all these contracts, and I did say I thought that, and I said it in my opening press conference, that losing football games should be a condition for terms of your employment to be nullified, and that's tough to be a pioneer in that because that hurts your candidate pool moving forward. It has to be an industry-wide change. It can't be one where Arkansas takes the lead on that per se, or it's going to hurt our candidate pool. So I don't see any significant changes in how we do our contracts, and we will pay what we need to pay to get the best person to take this position.
We're going to send this in, Bobby.
You said you've seen the program take a couple steps back over the last few weeks. What specifically did you mean by that, and did you think that Coach Morris kind of lost control of his locker room? Or the supportive locker room?
I don't know if he lost support of his locker room. I thought that the past couple of weeks that we weren't competing the way we had earlier in the season. I think you go back to the Texas A&M game and how hard we competed in that game, and we gave ourselves a chance to win that game against a very good Texas A&M team in the fourth quarter. And even back to the Auburn game, I don't think Auburn, Alabama are great opponents, but I didn't think we played very well, and I didn't think we competed very well in either one of those games, and we surely didn't compete very well against Mississippi State or Western Kentucky this past Saturday.
Hunter, a lot of criticism maybe on just the timeline of not giving enough time to head coaches. What was it that you saw that showed you that time wasn't going to be the right fit here?
The competitive nature of our football program. Again, I didn't have tremendously high expectations for us this season. One of those expectations was for us to go out each and every Saturday and compete like the Razorback football program should compete. And I thought we were no longer doing that. And I don't think that takes time to motivate the players within your program to compete.
Hunter, have you gotten a sense that donors and boosters are fully committed to doing whatever it takes to get the best guy in here?
I would say that our Razorback nation is fully committed to getting the best person in here. I think that we all desperately want our football program to be great again.
Okay, we'll go over here to Trey.
Hunter, you pointed to your discussion with players and not enjoying their experience here. I was wondering who else that you might have consulted with, like I assume, people who give a lot of money, but also what about the common Razorback fan? Did you reach out to any of them, or who else had say, I guess, on how they felt about this program?
Well, I consulted with Chancellor Steinmetz, some members of our board, but I didn't really reach out to anybody on our fan base. I think many of our fans made their thoughts known through various mediums about what they thought about our program. I think you could look at our attendance over the past couple of weeks and see what our fan base felt about our program moving forward. But this was my decision, and through my observation, I spent a lot of time around our football program. It's very, very important to the success of our athletic program that our football program is successful.
Hunter, as an ex-athlete, you've been in this side of the game now for a while as an AD. What have you evaluated with maybe the roster, the talent on the team, and is a radical kind of style maybe needed? Barry Lundy, one of the best at being a straight-up football player. Is that kind of something you're looking at? Because, we see it every Saturday, having trouble even competing talent-wise as well.
Sure. Well, I will tell you that there's plenty of talent in our locker room. It may not be Alabama-level talent, but we have plenty of talent, I believe, firmly within our locker room. And so that'll be up to whoever we choose as our next head coach, what type of system they employ as a head coach to be successful and help us win football games. So I'm not going to put myself in a box to say I'm going to bring in a triple option coach or anything like that as a radical move. Or it's going to be, we're going to hire the best football coach and allow them to put in the best system to make sure that our program's successful.
Tom?
Hunter, a couple times this year you've said that you saw progress in the program, that it may be not visible with results, but you saw progress. What do you feel happened that halted that progress? What internally is happening with this team?
I think it really was I look back to the second half of the Kentucky game, and we had fought really hard against Texas A&M. We had fought and played really well in the first half versus Kentucky. Probably did not have the lead we thought we should have had at halftime of that game, and I thought our season really turned when we couldn't close out that game and get that win against Kentucky. And I thought at that point in time, our student athletes started to lose a little bit of belief on if we could actually ever get over the hump with the current leadership.
JB?
Hunter, when you look at what's going on right now and the search that you talk about undertaking, you have a recent search under your belt already in terms of the men's basketball program. How important is it to you to feel like, you know what, I've already gone out, vetted a search, I've already looked for candidates and sold the school to those candidates too? How much does that help you with this football coaching search?
Absolutely. That search was a great learning experience for me very early in my tenure, a little bit over a year into my tenure, about what people outside of Fayetteville think of the University of Arkansas and how positively people think of this institution and this state and what this athletic program, at that point in time, our men's basketball program, and what they believe our football program should be. And so that was a great learning experience for me to go through that and really to see on a national level the perception of the University of Arkansas and our athletic program.
We'll go to the back.
Hunter, after turning this coach over in less than 2 years and looking like that is going to be, more prevalent in college football as we move forward, how do you assure the next head coach that they're going to get the time to build this program and really take them in the direction that you want Arkansas football to go?
That's my job to sell them on that. And I mean, quite honestly, I know I've got to get this search right. We cannot afford, as a Department of Athletics, to go through this 2 to 3 years from now. This gives the timing of this change gives me a little bit longer runway to really do my due diligence on this search and make sure that we get the right candidate in here, and then we allow that right candidate the time they need to build a program. Obviously, that's going to take steps. That first step is we've just got to be competitive. We've got to put a competitive product out on that field that we all feel proud to support Saturday after Saturday. And then from that competitiveness will become wins, and those wins will start to multiply year after year. But the first thing is we've just got to put a competitive product out there on the field.
Yeah, all right, a couple things. What was the meeting like with the players last night? How'd you think Barry handled that?
Barry handled it great. I gave some remarks to the young men. The first thing I did was apologize to most of them for how they found out about the change. I had set up a text message to go to them at about 10:50 that's scheduled a meeting at 7 o'clock. I had to travel yesterday to a women's soccer game. As is often the case, the story leaks out and somebody gets his story, and then our student athletes have to find out at a less desirable way than I would have preferred. So the first thing I did was apologize to each and every one of them about how they found out about that, and then talked about my decision to make that change in their leadership, and talked about my decision to appoint Coach Lunny. And quite honestly, the kids were really excited about Coach Lunny. I think for the reason we talked about. He's a Razorback. He's walked in their footsteps. He understands what they're going through, having an interim coach. He pointed to that big win over Tennessee, and I think he's got them believing that we can have some special things happen over the last couple of weeks of this season.
When you made the call to appoint Barry, did you know about his history of being on the 92 team and going through an interim coach situation?
Kevin Trainor's pretty good about filling me in on some of the history, so yes.
And I know it's a small window, 2 games, yeah. But are you evaluating Barry to be the guy, like if they go to Baton Rouge and win or something crazy? Or hey, you never know, man. But Barry started his first game at Tennessee and beat the Vols, so I guess. And have you assured Barry, hey, we want you to stay part of the program, whoever the new coach is, or kind of where does that stand?
I'm excited to have Barry Lunny as our interim head coach. He was excited about the opportunity, again, under some tough circumstances. He did a great job, I think, energizing our young men last night under a very difficult set of circumstances. I think they're excited about moving forward over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm not going to say I'm evaluating Barry, but we'll tell you Barry's got a great opportunity over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and he's already hit the ground running and has been very impressive in his first 24 hours.
We'll take a few more. We'll start here with Trevor.
Hunter, I think there's a misconception from the public about what search firms do, and I just wanted to ask, are you going to be using a search firm, and if so, what type of role will they be in?
Sure. I believe it's my role as an athletic director to identify candidates that I think are the best fit for the University of Arkansas. We will probably use a search firm or some type of a consultant to help me with the management of the search, meaning reaching out to gauge interest, to see, to do background checks, things of that nature. But it's my job as a director of athletics to run this search, to identify the appropriate candidates that are the right fit, and to, in the end, identify the best candidate for this position.
Okay, a couple more. We'll start on the left.
How important do you think it is to continue the offensive scheme that they have going here, and is that going to be a big factor when you consider candidates?
Well, you may want to ask Coach Lunny about what his scheme's going to be for the next 2 weeks. I don't want to put any pressure on him, but again, that's going to go back to whoever we select. And to me, your scheme should meet your personnel. So if we hire a coach that has a scheme that is scheme A, that's his preference, he better make sure that he can come in here and take the student athletes that we have and create a scheme that works for the talent we have on this team right now. And then as he begins to recruit the players that fit his scheme a little bit better, then employ that scheme.
We have two more here.
We've got a couple things. What was Chad's reaction when you told him? Do you feel like he felt it was coming? And secondly, given the early signing date, the time frame that you're working under, can you talk about that?
Sure. Chad and I meet every Sunday, and we had met after the Mississippi State game, and he understood from that meeting, it was a very candid meeting after that the Western Kentucky game was a really key game for him and his tenure here. So I don't think that Sunday, our meeting yesterday, took him totally by surprise. I don't think it should ever take anybody totally by surprise when you let them go. It was a tough meeting. Chad Morris is a great friend. We left that meeting with a hug and some tears, and he will remain a great friend, and he understands, and I understand that was a professional decision.
Take one final one. The time frame.
The time frame, obviously, the early signing period's key because we've got some recruits that have committed to the University of Arkansas that we want to retain, and then we want to give our new coaching staff an opportunity to recruit additionally prior to that signing day. And so giving them a runway to do that is important, but I think we've given ourselves a runway that we're not going to be in a rush. We still got 3 weeks left in the regular season, another week for conference championship games, so we've got a little bit of time to get this search done the right way and get the right person in here and still allow them time to recruit.
Hunter, did you have a list of specific names that you want to go after before firing Morris, or are you really going into it cold?
I have developed a list of candidates, absolutely. But what I haven't done, because I didn't think that's the right thing to do when I still have a head coach, I didn't put any feelers out to say who's interested. I think that's not fair to Coach Morris for me to go out behind his back and see who may be interested in the position while I still have a sitting head coach. But I will start that today and work into the list of candidates that have done up to see who truly is interested.
All right. We'll take questions now for Coach Lunny. Matt, over the left.
Hey, Barry, I wonder, who are some of the mentors that maybe you reach out to yesterday, today, maybe you talk to about this situation, get advice?
Well, I'm pretty blessed in that respect because I have a guy that shares a name, or I share his name, that has been a pretty fair head high school coach in his career. And I say that, obviously you guys know I'm talking about my dad, and who has had a tremendous high school career here in the state of Arkansas, has been following this program for years, whose father played here for the Razorbacks in 1946 through 49, John Lunny, who started bringing me to games when I was 8 and 9 and 10 years old. So I think I started there, surrounding myself with a guy that's got a lot of wisdom and seen a lot of things through, and even following Arkansas football. He's witnessed that over the years, not just as a fan, but as a parent of the players, a parent of a coach. And so it started there with him. Really, it's been such a whirlwind. That's kind of where it's ended, to be honest with you. I mean, the last 24 hours is been a blur, and people say that all the time, but it's really been true. We went to eat lunch yesterday as a family. I'm not even sure where we ate. I was on the phone the whole time. I don't know what I ate. I don't know where we ate, but I do believe we ate lunch. And but I've been using my dad as a resource, not constantly, not on the phone 24 hours, but I'm going to use him. We've got Turner Gill that is sitting in our office that Chad hired in the off season and Hunter brought in the off season, who, is a tremendous resource and going to be for me. Bobby Allen, who's seen this program, the good and the bad and the ugly over the last several years. Ron Cooper is a former head coach that I've already gleaned some things from him, and so I think it's going to be a mixture of everybody. And then obviously using my best judgment, I'm going to have to make some decisions, not hardcore decisions, but I'm going to have to make some day-to-day decisions on my own, and I'm ready, prepared to do that, and that's why I'm sitting here at this table.
Barry, aside from motivating players, how do you motivate basically a lame duck staff, and just what do you do as far as recruiting this open week?
Sure, that's a good question. I think Hunter met with us this morning and said it very clearly and very well. And I think he said things that we all know is, everybody at our table, almost a man, has been through this in some way, shape, or form. And the thing you can't lose sight of, and that we're going to refuse to lose sight of, is that, we don't really owe anything to anybody other than our players and ourselves to make the best of the next 3 weeks for these young men. And we got, like Hunter said, we've got 120 players down there that has not reaped the benefit of the hard work, the labor, the off season. Football is, no offense, I see Coach Neighbors back here, and who was one of my first youth coaches that I ever had, by the way. The best, I should say the best youth coach I've ever had. And that's what makes football so unique. You work all the way year-round. And anymore, it is truly year-round. Summer, fall, spring, and you get 12 chances. You get 12 chances to reap benefits of a victory. And when you don't, man, it can become tiring and laborsome, and it's becomes a burden when you put all that work in without the effort. And so we've got 2 weeks left of a guaranteed 12-game season. We got two games left for them to go to try to reap benefits of the work and the effort that they put in the off season. And so we owe that to them as a staff, these kids, and we owe that to ourselves to put our best foot forward for these last 2 football games. And I'm very confident that we're going to do that.
Coach, with the bye week, how much can you do with that much time to get ready for LSU? How much can you change? And do you feel like you can tailor the game a little bit more towards your personnel with all that time?
Well, those are good questions as well, Nikki. I think you're limited. I know you are. You're limited in what exactly you can do with the short turnaround. We do have an extra couple days of prep that we will use for our advantage, that we have to. LSU plays a game this week, so that in itself gives us an advantage of a few days of studying them and learning some more intricate details about things that we're going to see from a game plan standpoint. Can you install, or would you want to install drastic changes? No. We've been working hard the last 2 years on our schemes on both sides of the ball and special teams. I think we would be remiss at this point to come in and try to do a wholesale change, and I don't think that's necessary. Really, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is we got to play with more heart. It doesn't matter what scheme we had. We could install the triple option in the bye week, and if our guys don't believe in each other and believe that they're going to win and play with great resolve and effort and toughness and grit, it doesn't matter what we do in that regard. And that's really what we've seen for the last few weeks since, like Hunter said, the halftime of the Kentucky game. We just haven't been the same. I think our players lost heart a little bit after we had a game in our grasp and we let it go. And I think it hurt and stung them. And we just haven't recovered from that in a lot of ways. And so my main concern and my main priority is not scheme-based. Sure, is there going to be some things that I would like to see, some small things? Yes, there are. Will those be obvious to the outside eye? Probably not. But my main concern is to get these guys to give their best foot forward and play our best football game of the year. Again, I want to say this, and our kids understand this. I said this last night. Our goal is to play our best football game of the year against Baton Rouge. And whatever that looks like, I don't really care. But I want it to be our best football game.
Barry, you know as well as anyone the potential for what this program can do. What needs to take place, do you think, to get back to that level? And I got one more after that.
Can he do that, Kevin? He can. Okay. He's trying to sneak in. Well, that's right. Well, I mean, you got to have a guy, that obviously that Hunter's going to be. There's no doubt in my mind is going to do a great job of finding somebody that understands this place, whether you're from here or not. It's important, I think, to understand the state and the culture. Anybody that's come from the outside that's been successful has usually embraced that. And I'm not saying Chad didn't, because I've seen him do that and make great attempts to do that. So I think it starts there. I think you got to understand the history and the heritage of the program. I think that one of the things that's key is recruiting footprint, and I think Chad had a good plan for that. And I think that somebody could piggyback on that and use that as a springboard to continue that emphasis. And it's a tough league. We all know that. It's the best league in football, the best division in football. But we all have seen there's been ebbs and flows in this over the years we've seen the Razorbacks spike and be contenders, not just for the SEC championship. We've played in the game 3 times. And so it's been done before, and I'm a firm believer what's done before can be done again. One of my favorite movies is the old movie The Edge, about them being trapped in the woods with the grizzly bear. You remember that one? Alec Baldwin and I think Anthony Hopkins, right? And he had to believe in Anthony Hopkins that he can kill the bear. And he said, I can't kill the bear. He said, yeah, what one man can do, another can do. And he's right. What one team in the history here can do, another can do. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it can be done. And you just got to, there's got to be a perfect storm of events. You got to have a good senior class. That's going to be critical for us to keep these players together so they continue to grow and mature together in this process. Like I mentioned before in my opening statement, my freshman year, things did not go very well early on for us, our freshmen. Our head coach got let go after 1 game. But yet we stuck together and laid the foundation to be a senior class that took Arkansas to their first ever SEC championship game. And so I think sticking together is going to be important for our football team, finding the right guy, obviously, that understands the history and the heritage of this program and to hit the ground running with it.
What's the game day setup going to look like from a coaching standpoint? Have you gotten that far? And can C.J. O'Grady, is there a route back to the team for C.J.?
No, there's not. And as far as game day, we're going to take Daniel DePrado, who served as our special teams analyst and worked hand in hand with me in the special teams units. I'm going to put Daniel on the field so he can run the meetings and coach on the field. I think that was the easiest, a very clear, easy decision to make for our football team. And so other than that, you won't see a lot of game day changes. Joe Craddock will continue to call the plays, and obviously Chief will run our defense. And like I said before, it's going to be less about scheme, and it's going to be more about trying to get our players to play with great resolve and character.
Coach Lunny, obviously not a lot of time left for much this season. And the future, though, the recruits that have committed to the university, there's been a few that have dropped off already. What can a staff do in a situation like this? You've been through it before, to try and retain these guys the best you can.
Well, I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't get to your second part of your question, so here we go, right here. This was it, right? And well, I think the first thing, when you recruit a kid and you get a kid committed, usually it's twofold. I mean, very seldom is a kid committed solely for the purpose of a coach. It's usually a split between a coach and the university, the draw, the program, the facilities, the educational opportunity, the culture and the environment of Northwest Arkansas. It's split. So as a recruiter, we sell that. Right? You go to a kid's home, you sell. You don't sell just yourself. You don't sell just your coaching staff. You sell the university. You sell the Razorbacks. You sell the state and the pride that this state takes in our football program. And so I think you just got to continue to sell that part. Say, hey, remember when we talked about this originally, this wasn't just about one person, one coach. This was about our program. You remind them of that. You remind them of the great qualities of our university, and then you remind them that we have leadership in place that is, without question, going to make a decision that he thinks is best for 120 football players to bring a head coach in here that is going to want to connect with them and give them the opportunity to reevaluate their situation in a positive manner. So, and we're doing that. We're actively spent a lot of the time on the phone yesterday with several of our commitments, encouraging them and reinforcing to them that they're wanted here and they're going to be honored here. And that doesn't mean that the kids aren't going to look somewhere else and during this time, but our message to them is just sit tight. Sit tight. We just got a few weeks left. Let the dust settle. Just sit tight and let's see how this thing plays out.
You talk about knowing this program, knowing the history of this program. We've talked about a candidate pool. Could Barry Lundy Jr. be a candidate? Would you want to be the head coach at Arkansas?
Well, yes, Alyssa, obviously that's a dream of mine, but my focus right now is to get these guys their best opportunity to play their best football game they played this year, because we've got some black eyes, and it needs to stop. And that's my sole focus, is getting our coaches and our players to play their best football game that they played all year long when we go to Baton Rouge. Whatever that looks like, I just want it to be our best game. OD, special teams together, and then if we'll do that, and then we'll do it again the next week when we go to Little Rock, we're going to have a chance to win a football game. I believe that very strongly, and that's my sole focus.
A couple more, Bob, and then next.
Yeah, I actually had a couple, but kind of piggybacking off that, I know this isn't the way you want to get your dream job, but the fact of the matter is right now you're the head coach of the Razorbacks. Kind of how does that feel? What are the emotions
well,
like?
It's yeah, I would be lying to you if I told you it wasn't mixed. I mean, it's very strange in some ways, but yet it feels very natural in some ways. And the fact that, as far as the situation and the circumstances that we're facing, I felt like, and obviously Hunter agreed, that I was the right fit for this time. And so, just flooded with memories and, things of the past. I mean, like I told you to start my opening statement, I couldn't help but to think about Joe Kynes, and what he went through. And, he had some great lines, and he was always full of energy and excitement. And I just remember how he invigorated our football team that year. It wasn't perfect. I mean, we had some, we had some things go bad during that season, but he gave us some hope, and he gave us some confidence. And
You can kind of use Joe as a role model?
Yeah, I want to do that for our players.
And then the other question, you said, Daniel, will he kind of start coordinating special teams? So, because you got head coach and stuff to worry about, and then will you still coach at tight ends?
Yeah, I'm going to still be involved with the tight ends just because of the restrictions that we have on staffing. I'm going to definitely do that on a day-to-day basis. Daniel and I will continue to collaborate on the special team stuff, but I'm obviously going to need him to step up and handle more of that on his own. Because I've been running those for this season. I've been running the 4 core units, the meetings daily, and just some things he could take off my plate will be very helpful. He's very good and very confident in his ability to step up and to help us in that regard.
You decided on a starting quarterback yet?
Well, I actually was. I forgot to do my opening statement and address the question that everybody has been obviously wanting to know about leading into this game, and I still haven't made my mind up on who's going to be the punter at Baton Rouge. So we're still working that out. We got a lot of time to figure that out between now and then, and I don't think we're going to declare anybody to give LSU. We've played so many of them; they're going to have to rotate. We're going to have to rotate who they're getting prepared for, and I think we could use that to our advantage, and then we'll Gomer pile them when we get down there. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Thank you, Coach Lundy. Thank you, Hunter.
There is some other news to report, and Saturday afternoon, wherever you were when you got the news or the score, or maybe you were even watching the Western Kentucky game, you had to think, can this go on any longer? And the answer is no. Hunter Yurachek, the athletic director, earlier today in Fayetteville. Okay, well, not much you can say about that other than who's next. Some of the names mentioned: Mike Norvell of Memphis, Mike Leach, Bill Clark of UAB, who was with us the other day. It's an interesting list. Could include a few more, like Gus Malzahn. We're starting to see coaches fall by the wayside. Taggart last week, Chad Morris this week. Neither a big surprise. I know you do a lot of work talking to assistants, canvassing the country. What's ahead? Do you think this is going to be a crazy couple of weeks?
You know, it's so funny because 2 days before Taggart got whacked, I was talking to somebody who's, you know, part and parcel of this coaching carousel stuff every year and said, I don't think it's going to be that big a year. And then Taggart happens like, whoa, okay. And now, yeah, the Morris thing certainly you could see coming, especially when Taggart went down and Morris's record's much worse than his, and you're behind 35-7 at halftime to Western Kentucky. I was surprised he got the second half. But I think there's going to be more to come. Certainly, everybody expects USC to happen. I think Steve Adazio at Boston College is probably a nervous guy right now. There will be some other jobs changing hands at a little bit lower level, probably as well. But I think a coaching carousel that maybe didn't look too interesting a couple of weeks ago is gradually but inexorably picking up a little bit of steam.
Any read on the biggest fish out there? Well, there may be a few bigger in the game, but out of the game, and that's Urban Meyer.
Well, I don't see him going to USC. The indication pretty clearly there is just that Carol Folt, the new chancellor, who had been at North Carolina, is a serious academic type and didn't enjoy the scandal run there at North Carolina with the academics. I don't think she wants anybody who has any baggage, if that's possible, in college athletics. So I don't see Urban necessarily in the wheelhouse. I don't know what else he would really want. I think he's going to be pretty choosy, and he's been very good on TV. He may just decide, you know what, I'll do this another year, and then we'll see what else pops open. If there's something, he's not going to look at more than 6 or 8 jobs. I wouldn't think maximum.
Well, Arkansas is available. I think Urban would be great there, don't you?
Oh, my gosh. Could you imagine?
And, of course, we were listening to Hunter Yurachek a minute ago talking about the future for Arkansas football. And let's bring in our good friend Josh Bertuccini from Northwest Arkansas, hosts the highly regarded show out there in the morning on the affiliate that we're on. And JB, so great to have you here. Last week when we talked to you, I think it was Wednesday, or I think it was Tuesday, you could kind of sense the end was near. What happened to finally, other than Western Kentucky, to finally push Chad Morris out?
Great to be with you, Paul. And when we talked last week, it did feel like we were getting real close to this thing being resolved one way or another. And like you said, Western Kentucky was really the final nail in the coffin for Chad Morris. And I was in the room there at the press conference that you were listening to coming back, and asked Hunter Yurachek about what the real pivotal moment was for him in this process. And he said it was a combination of things. I mean, obviously the losses add up, but as the season went on, the team was regressing in terms of its competitiveness on the field, and obviously that plus a locker room that seems to have all kind of dissension post-firing now. Yurachek said it was time to make the move, and he wanted to get ahead of the hiring curve instead of behind it. So here we go.
Let's talk about what I'm sure everyone is talking about in your state, and that is what is next. What does the list look like?
Well, look, the list is one that's being vetted kind of as we speak, and I'm sure Athletic Director Hunter Yurachek has been thinking about this thing for a couple of weeks. As you referenced, the San Jose State loss a month ago was really when he probably started to think about this stuff. Barry Lunny Jr. is the interim coach right now. I'm sure there are some folks here in the state of Arkansas who would love to see the former quarterback go out and pull a stunner against LSU, or even what would be considered a surprise against Missouri before the year's over. But, regardless of that, I don't know how much of a realistic candidate he is moving forward. So you're looking at another outside of the house kind of move, and I think the big consensus right now is Hog fans just want somebody who can win, who's got a plan, who's got experience, and hopefully brings some kind of a street cred to the job that really didn't happen with Chad Morris.
JB, when you look at Yurachek, I think he came here from Houston, is that right?
Yep.
Is there anything in his past that would portend where he may go?
It's a good question. You try to find out whatever you can about his background and what went on with him and his previous stops, and the most you can find really is the Houston situation and what happened there in terms of Tom Herman, and that proved to be very successful. And so you wonder whether moving forward he's not looking to find one of those up-and-comer types he's got a personal connection to. I think the consensus around here is Hunter Yurachek is going to play this very close to the vest. We spoke last time, Paul, about his handling of the Mike Anderson hire for the men's basketball program here at Arkansas. And again, I have to give Yurachek credit for not letting anything really creep out of the woodwork. He kept that close to the vest, and nobody knew what direction he was leaning in until right before he announced Eric Musselman. So he's going to try to keep it as quiet as possible. I think some names right now that make sense are regional-type names. You know, you look east to Memphis, and Mike Norville and the connection he has to Arkansas, that makes a lot of sense as somebody they would look at. You look a little to the north, and a guy like Matt Campbell at Iowa State is somebody we've heard talked about here. I could go in every direction of the country, Paul. Mike Leach is a name that seems to have some tread here, and let's not forget, just a little bit to the south, Gus Malzahn still has a sizable contingent of Hog fans who love to see him come back.
Let me hold on a second. Let me stop at Leach. We know that Leach nearly went to Tennessee. Leach, we knew it, but Leach was with us this past summer and said, "Yeah, I was fairly interested until it turned into a Shakespearean drama." Where is that coming from?
I think when you look at the profile, his ability to do it in a small town, right, comparatively, Lubbock, Texas, or Pullman, Washington, he's able to get recruits to areas that maybe aren't known for pulling recruits. Fayetteville, Arkansas would seem similar in that regard, while a great town, and you all know that, Paul, a really special place. Not a lot of recruits know a ton about Arkansas, let alone have they been here. So I think the angle of being able to recruit to a place that's a little off the map, and also the offensive scheming. I mean, you know Leach. He's a talented offensive coach who really can feature a quarterback in a vertical offense. We saw that work here to great effect with Bobby Petrino. And really, too, I think Leach he's a little quirky. He's a little offbeat. He's got that chip on the shoulder. I think some folks feel like his personality would fit that chip-on-the-shoulder mentality that you all know a lot of Arkansas Razorback fans have.
You mentioned Norvell. Certainly, he's done a phenomenal job. It seems like his name has been hot for a while. Does that make sense to you?
I think so. I think it does because of, obviously, the regional connection. He's also a guy who has roots here. I mean, grew up in Fort Smith, played college football in Conway, Arkansas at UCA, and so by all accounts, he's still got connections all over this state, and I haven't verified it, but I've heard some folks speak about a lake house that he might have in Rogers here in northwest Arkansas in Beaver Lake. And look, if he does have all those connections, that's only going to add to the fact that he's shown he can win at Memphis, a program that you well know has not really done a lot until he got there, and he's built it up, and the Hogs were interested in him 2 years ago, and obviously it didn't come to fruition, but he'd also bring a sense of the ability to recruit Mississippi and a little bit of Tennessee and a little bit of Louisiana, areas where the Hogs have to be able to pull players to have a competitive chance in this conference. So I think it would improve the recruiting base too. And look, if they can make it happen, great. I think right now Arkansas is struggling to sell this program to candidates as much as candidates are going to be trying to sell themselves to the program.
You mentioned Gus Malzahn. I think everyone knows his roots to that area. He was an incredibly successful high school coach just right down the street. I don't think he nearly came there last year. He certainly had the opportunity to come there. Is there any reason to believe he's more interested today than he was 2 years ago?
You know, you'd probably have a better read on where Malzahn's at now than even I would, but I'll tell you this. You and I have talked about Malzahn a lot off and on through the last few years, and I feel like the idea that Gus has somehow turned his back on Arkansas, that some Razorback fans seem to have, or that he was too big time for them 2 years ago when they were seriously interested and made that massive contract offer that Auburn stepped up and matched. I think Gus was interested. I think the idea that he stayed where he was for that kind of money made sense. And so spinning that into some kind of a slight against Arkansas, to me, doesn't have a lot of merit. And let's not forget either, when Brett Bielema got the Arkansas Razorback job, now we're going back 7 years ago, but Gus Malzahn wanted that job at the time. And as the Arkansas State head coach, I think really it was Arkansas who had the stigma against Gus, or really more so against Arkansas State, and didn't want to hire that kind of a candidate. So when you really look at it, Malzahn's got all kinds of high school connections here. I'm not sure how he's feeling about the Auburn job right now, but you and I well know it's never going to be good enough for him at Auburn. I was a little surprised he didn't make the move 2 years ago. I got to believe a proven coach like that who could come in, lift them up offensively, have that chip on his shoulder I've already brought up in this call with you, Paul. I think Malzahn would ultimately play very well here if somehow those two star-crossed kinds of friends were able to make it happen for each other.
JB, I realize you live there, and it's an incredibly nice town. People don't realize what a jewel Northwest Arkansas is, but is this a good job?
I mean, I'm going to sell you that it is, but I also have to be real about it. I mean, on the one hand, on 92 on the ticket in Fayetteville, where we have you in the afternoons, it's absolutely important for us to get talked about. It's important for us to be on shows like this and to tell people about the University of Arkansas, because if we don't, the word's not going to get out there. It's a state of 3 million. It's the smallest state in the SEC right there next to Mississippi. It's a state that likes to think of itself as an underdog, because it readily is. But at the same time, you mentioned it, this is a beautiful area, lots of stuff to do as far as the outdoors, and then you got the cultural element of the Razorbacks. It's a growing area. People are employed, good economy, safe place. And then on top of it, let's get back to the football program. The facilities are here, Paul. I mean, you've seen it. The practice facilities here for football. I mean, it's here for basketball, for baseball, one of the best baseball stadiums in the country, track and field. So the money's invested in the infrastructure already, and the booster base here is ready to roll. They just need something to wrap their arms around. And I would say, too, I think candidates are aware that this is a difficult job to recruit to. I mean, you can't just be good in Arkansas, which is hard enough. You got to keep the big recruits here, but you got to make an inroads to Texas, to Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, and you got to be able to pull a few away from the Nick Sabans and the Ed Orgerons and the Kirby Smarts in this conference. So absolutely it's a good job for the right person, but they've got to be somebody who's aware of the complicated, difficult nature of the job, because it's one where you have to bring inordinate amounts of energy on a regular basis, and we thought Chad Morris had that kind of energy, and maybe he did, but clearly he just didn't have the ability to scheme it up and do it enough on game days to get the results.
My best comes from Arkansas, Western Kentucky. Hang with me for a second. I know Arkansas lost this game, but we got to give a shout out to Rakeem Boyd, who has put this team on his back all season, contributing most of Arkansas's offensive yards in his 2 touchdowns this past weekend. Rakeem Boyd, you're going to see him play again at the next level. He's pretty talented, so I had to give him a shout out.
I can't believe you found something good. If you found something good from that, you're the most positive person I know.
It's tough to keep balling in that situation. Shout out, Rakeem.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Go Irish. Important to remember what time of year this is and who the real heroes are. We toss that name around in sports all the time. Heroes, right? The real heroes. Paths often cross at the intersection of life. On the one hand, there are a few college quarterbacks that have the resume of Tim Tebow. Heisman Trophy winner, 2-time national champion, 3-time All-SEC, 3-time Heisman finalist. You know the deal. On the other hand, there are a few soldiers that have the resume of Jake Bequette, All-SEC defensive end, Cotton Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion, and first lieutenant in the U.S. Army. For Tebow and Bequette, their paths intersected on more than one occasion and came full circle at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Blitz coming. Tebow does shake the initial contact, but that's about it, as Jake Bequette, number 91, makes the tackle. Arkansas will bring 5. Oh, it's tipped by Bequette. Knocked out by Jake Bequette.
What a play.
You got to be kidding me. Out of all the plays, and they're going to show your 2 plays, but does it really count like when I'm throwing and then you just like kind of tap it behind me?
Hey, whatever it takes. Separate the man from the ball.
Is this Belichick coming out right now?
Hey, you know where it came from, right? We both came from the same
I do know where it came from. You were there for 4 years. I was there for 4 minutes, but it's totally fine. They were like, hey, come on in. Hey, we'll see you later. But you had a great career there.
It was a great experience.
So you finished 4 years in the NFL and you have this success, you won a Super Bowl. There are a lot of people that would offer you jobs.
I knew ultimately where I wanted to go was the military. I wanted to play football for as long as I could, and I had a good career. But I was still a relatively young man when I was done playing ball, and I knew that, hey, I had the chance to serve in the infantry, to go to Ranger School, and to be an infantry officer in a great organization like the 101st, and that was an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Go! Why were you so passionate about it? Why was this something you had to do?
As an American, we live in the greatest country on earth, and it's not by accident that we are who we are, that we have the liberties and the freedoms that we have. It's because able-bodied, young men and women volunteered to serve in our armed forces. And not to go on a long spiel, but
no, it's okay, do it. I love it. But you're freaking firing me up, and I'm getting goosebumps.
But truly, I believe it was a calling to serve, and just like every soldier you see here working out today, or goes to work at Fort Campbell, they felt that same call.
Was there ever a place in training, Ranger School, or even when you were overseas, where you thought, how did I get myself in this position? Was there a hard moment where you questioned it or you doubt it?
There are always tough moments,
yeah.
But never have I wanted to do something differently. I know
awesome,
that I know that I'm here for a reason,
yeah.
and that's what keeps me driving hard every day, is knowing that I'm here for a purpose.
Yeah. How has your past given you a platform to encourage other guys?
Well, I was very lucky to be on the Patriots. I walked in my first day in 2012, and the guy who was the first one in the meeting room scribbling notes furiously in that first team meeting was Tom Brady. Here's this guy, the best quarterback of all time, and he's in this just generic spring practice meeting, just like it's his first day of rookie minicamp. And so that set the tone for my whole career.
How did it change your leadership ability?
Yeah, so on the front door of the New England Patriots team facility is the 4 rules of the team, right? Do your job, work hard, be attentive, put the team first. Those are things that I can show my soldiers, guys in my organization. Hey, you don't have to be super talented.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the biggest, strongest, fastest guy. If you do those 4 simple things, you're going to be successful.
One of my favorite quotes that I've had on my door since I was 6 years old is hard work beats talent. Talent doesn't work hard. And I think that you were someone that was talented, but there was a lot of guys that were more talented than you, but you made more teams, you made more plays, and you were a better player because you found something inside of you that they couldn't find inside of them.
I got everything that I had because I was fortunate to be around great people, and then I outworked guys who were maybe more talented than me. The saying is, success is leased, not owned, and rent is due every day.
I love it.
But it's not just about like cool sayings. It's about, hey, are you going to be the first guy into the team meeting room or our company area? Yeah. Are you going to be the guy who stays late and does extra individual soldier training? The guy who goes to the gym twice a day instead of just once in the morning for PT? I want guys who are my subordinate leaders and my subordinate soldiers to see that. And I'm one guy in a big organization, but even the smallest guy can make an impact.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jake. You did sack me twice in college and one forced fumble, but I tell you what, man, I look up to you and I appreciate you. I appreciate what you stand for, your service. I think a lot of people are going to watch this and they're going to be really inspired by your story. So I just want to say thank you for what you do and you represent, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
The Arkansas job is open. You're obviously an Arkansas guy, coach there, played there as Malcolm. How committed are you to get done, what you want to do here, staying here, doing things?
Yeah, I love Auburn. Like I've said in the past, I love my players. We got a bright future here, and nothing's changed.
He told his team, as we said earlier, I told them all week, we're the better team. Today, they were. The winning coach is with Jamie.
Coach, it took 8 years, and you knew this one was going to take 60 minutes. We know what it was like to watch, but what was this one like to coach?
You know what? It's a great game to be in, a great rivalry. I am so happy for the state of Louisiana and all the LSU fans and our football team and our coaching staff. They worked very hard for this victory. It's a much-deserved victory for our football team and our great state of Louisiana and our great university in LSU.
Joe Burrow has changed the way this team runs its offense. What does this do for his legacy as an LSU quarterback?
Hey, he's one of the best we've had here. But we still got 4 games left. and we're going down the road. We're going to try to win them every game, and we're going to bring a championship back to Louisiana.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire carried that Alabama group just now for the first down. How did that embody the toughness today?
You know, Clyde is 6'4", 270, and he has a great mindset about himself. He has the heart of a champion. I am so proud of Clyde.
Where can this team go from here, Coach?
We'll see. We've got to go beat Ole Miss next week. We'll take it one game at a time.
Congratulations.
Go Tigers.
In another coaching news, Chad Morris fired at Arkansas. He went 4-18, no wins in the SEC in less than 2 seasons, and so that will be it for Morris in Fayetteville. Now, here's the thing. It was the worst winning percentage by anyone to coach at least 5 games for the Razorbacks, and that includes, of course, that 0-14 record against conference opponents. Paul Feinbaum here with me. And Paul, you've heard from Arkansas fans on your show. You've got a great pulse on this. What's your reaction to Arkansas making the move to let Chad Morris go this week?
Well, they had to make it. I mean, you don't want to fire a coach before he finishes 2 years, but based on what I heard from fans in Northwest Arkansas, they couldn't tolerate it anymore. They just couldn't take it. And it's unfortunate because, I mean, long term he may have worked out, but when you don't win a conference game in 2 years, you're going to get fired. And I think the question now is, what do they do next? Hunter Yurachek has been there about 2 years. He got there around the same time. And there's just a lot of speculation. 2 years ago, Laura, we all know they went after Gus Malzahn, which got him that huge contract extension. After today, there'll be some conversation whether they'll go after him again. But if it's not Malzahn, then do they go for a hotshot assistant, or do they try to bring in another mid-level coach like Morris? They're in a very tough spot because Bielema didn't work out, this one didn't work out, and the fans have pretty much had enough of losing.
Look, and I'll say this about the Arkansas fan base. They deserve a great coach. They deserve an excellent program. They're an incredible fan base that shows up for all sports.
They are.
And it has to be better there. So that'll be fascinating to watch. Amazing how it's interconnected, even with that game at Auburn today. From LSU and Ole Miss, who wins?
I'm taking LSU. It's Joe Burrow. This team is following everything he's doing. They're going to have success today, and there will be no hangover.
I think the crowd's excited early. Maybe they make a few plays early, but LSU is a lot better football team.
There's going to be a lot of hottie-toddies tonight. Unfortunately for the home crowd, LSU's going to win.
All right, well, there you go. Here's the thing. Paul asked for a toddy earlier. Does anyone have one? Because we got 20 seconds left in the show.
They're not giving him one now.
Oh, no, but now he doesn't get one because they're not a big fan of that. Hey, we'll see you.
LSU. That's a tease. LSU on the road at Ole Miss, coming off that Tuesday's new #1 ranking in the college football playoff poll. First quarter scoreless. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. That's what you said they should do.
And that's what they did. They did it early. They did it often. Jamar Chase is tough to cover in that secondary.
Then Burrow avoids the rush. Chase again. Chase inside the 10, sorry.
How about the linebacker coming scot-free and Joe Burrow being able to elude the backer and dump the ball off?
Best feet in the conference.
Touchdown. Tyrion Davis Price, 4 yards, 14-0. Early second. Burrow. Chase.
Who'd that look like right there, by the way? Looked like Alabama, right?
Alabama.
Little RPO.
Yeah, little RPO action.
Slant behind the linebacker.
Two to Judy, or Ruggs, or Waddle, or Smith. Burrow's got weapons, too. Burrow casually slides to his right. What a throw on the move.
And how does Jamar Chase casually slide behind the secondary?
You think you might want
every week? Yeah, you might.
200-year-old rule. You don't want wide receivers running free. It's a bad thing.
Right.
Look at him on it. Look at him on
Best feet. What'd you say,
Look at him. Best feet in the conference.
Sweet feet, Burrow.
I think that's one of the underrated things that he does well. Is eludes pressure. Far more athletic than people probably give him credit for.
Here finds Justin Jefferson. He had another touchdown pass. Burrow was dynamite. 32 of 42. 489 yards. 5 touchdowns. Jerry on Ely. Big pickup there. Ole Miss had 2 running backs go for over 100. Ely had 143 and 2 touchdowns. Trying to think who the other one was.
Oh.
He wasn't a running back.
No, he wasn't. 2 rushes, though.
Can I tell you who it was?
Would you please?
Number 10.
He's
I
giddy.
think his name is Plumlee?
John Rice?
That would be him.
Yeah, look at him. I mean, are you kidding me?
This guy's a blur, Dari.
He is absolute blur. You're exactly
There's nobody within 10 yards of him.
No.
They're not even in the camera.
How many times have they seen that play on tape? Defenses still can't stop him.
Nope.
Look at him again. John Rice Plumlee, 212 yards rushing, 4 rushing touchdowns. Second player in Ole Miss history to go for over 204 rushing touchdowns in a game. The other, not a quarterback, Dexter McCluster. He's the first Ole Miss quarterback ever to rush for over 200 yards in a game. And it, oh, by the way, happened against the #1 team in all the land. And Ole Miss is hanging around because of a little bit of defense and a whole lot of Plumlee, Chiz.
Yes, fake the reverse on that one, Dari. And guess what? 40 yards later,
he runs away from secondary players.
Yes, he does.
Unreal. It's a 2-touchdown game, guys, in the 4th. Burrow. Here's the problem. Ole Miss didn't get enough of those stops. They gave themselves an opportunity there to cut it to within a score. 2 interceptions on the night for Burrow, by the way. Eventually, Ole Miss cannot convert. Chase off to the races. 8 catches, 227 yards, 3 touchdowns. By the way, more on Plumlee. He's the first SEC quarterback to run for over 200 and 4 touchdowns in the last 20 seasons. In a game that featured 1,328 yards of total offense, the most in an SEC game in 3 seasons, it's Burrow and the #1 ranked Tigers who get the win.
You know, my coaches got me refocused. My teammates got me refocused. I have great people around me, and they helped me do it.
Let's enjoy the win. Let's don't get greedy. You know what I'm saying? Let's keep our feet on the ground. Our object is to win the game, and we won the game. We won it by 21 points. So, but obviously, when you don't play well on defense at LSU, nobody's feeling good. That's just the way it is.
So the Dave Aranda defense continues to get worse. 402 against Ole Miss. Those are some strange numbers. This has always been the hallmark of LSU under Aranda. What's up?
You worried about it, Paul?
Yeah, I think you have to be worried about it.
If it was just that game, I wouldn't be worried about it because John Rice Plumlee was just amazing. He was electric. It was tough to stop him. But this has been a continuing trend throughout the years that their defenses continue to give up big performances to almost everybody that they played, and they just outscored them. Can you outscore people all your way to the championship? I don't know.
Well, there's that stat is no team has won the college football playoff with a defense ranked worse than the top 25. LSU's somewhere in the 40s right now. And while they may only give up 3 or less points this weekend, that's still not going to help bring down the ultimate average of this.
It's funny. I asked Mark and Danny, I said, what FBS school are they playing this weekend? And they said it's worse. It's Arkansas.
Hey.
No, you guys didn't say that. I did.
It's going to be bad this weekend for Arkansas.
Biggest SEC spread ever, right?
That's what I heard, yeah.
That's wild.
That's saying a lot, really.
Yeah, the conference has been around for quite a while, and so is Vegas.
But when you get into the game, let's look ahead to the SEC championship because that's pretty much set here, Paul, which is going to be the bigger factor in here. Is it going to be LSU's offense going against Georgia's defense, or is Georgia's defense going to stymie the LSU offense?
Well, listen, it's a classic matchup. You've got the best offense versus the best defense. I mean, Jake Fromm's got to be going, you know what? We might really get on a roll here.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll tell the truth Monday, 10-0. Told the team after our victory, I was elated after the victory. I was proud of them. They were a little disappointed in their play in some areas. But I told them, listen, the object was to win the football game, and we did. Anything that goes wrong, put it on my shoulders. And we're going to get some stuff fixed this week. We got a lot of things to fix, which will be good. A couple of good things that we did. 58 points, over 700 yards of offense. I thought the MVPs of the game was Coach Craig and the offensive line. Bedard Traore and Adrian McGee at tackles played well. Did they play great? No, they made some mistakes, a couple of them. But for us to have 700-something yards with those guys at tackle, I thought those guys did very well. Next man up. Very proud of those guys. On defense, we got to coach them better. Starts with me. We got to put them in better positions. They gave us some schemes. They gave us some problems that we had to work on very hard yesterday to get some answers for. And our players are going to get that today. So number one starts with me, coaching them better. Number two, we got to make plays when we get in space and make tackles. Plumlee was an excellent quarterback. Give them some credit. They had a good scheme. Tell the truth, Monday, I can't wait to see our team today. We're excited to put this last game to bed. Press on to Arkansas. I'm excited that we're at home for our last two games. I know we're going to have a great crowd. You know, it's tough when he doesn't practice all week, and I don't know if many players would have played against Alabama if Grant wanted to play, and I thought he did well. And obviously that ankle is very sore, and not getting reps hurts sometimes. Making tackles in open space hurts sometimes because he can't bend or run like he wants to, but he's playing. We're going to give him a couple of days off this week, and hopefully he can get healthy for this weekend. We need to fix our run fits. There was a couple of runs that gave us some problems. I, for one, called the run stunt on that first long run in the second half. It didn't work. We're trying to be a little too aggressive. There was a new run play on arc read on the 4 technique that they hadn't showed, created a lot of space, gave us some problems. We had a couple of guys out of position, so we need to fix our position on those plays. I think all those things that happened on Saturday will attribute to, number one, putting them in better position, and number two, making plays when they're in that position. So I think all those things could be fixed.
Call me an idiot, but LSU should remain the #1 team in the country and have had the best season of any team in the country, and it isn't even close. I overheard someone suggesting Clemson and Ohio State are the 2 best teams in America. Did I miss a meeting? What are we talking about? How could you allow him to say that?
That was Dan O.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. But I think you're an idiot again.
Why?
I'm not as passionate about it. LSU has played a phenomenal schedule.
Yes.
But their defense is really porous. Greeny, I don't know if you watched the Ole Miss game. You probably didn't.
The Ole Miss game is the week after they just won their Super Bowl.
I'm sorry,
right?
but they gave up 400 yards, and they got run over at times in this game. I'm concerned about the LSU defense. I think the committee will stay this week with LSU. But if Ohio State wins against Penn State and Michigan and a Big Ten championship game, I think you'll see a new #1.
That'll be ridiculous if you ask me.
Meanwhile, Michael Divinity is not eligible until the national championship game. That's optimism there, isn't it? He is back on the team. Still not exactly sure what's been going on down there, but it won't matter because he won't be able to play until January 12th. Tony is up next. Hey, Tony.
Hey, Paul. So I hear you don't think Houston's the answer in Arkansas.
That would be correct, yes.
Well, I got to agree with you. The last few years he was there, his record really slid against teams that mattered. He won the easy games, but he didn't win the big games. And after being out of coaching so long, I don't know that he could really make a difference for us now. But where should we be looking?
Well, I mean, listen, I think there is a prototype for a coach and, someone with experience. I think that's important. Who, you don't have to be that young, but I think you have to be a really good recruiter. I know Mike Norvell's name has come up a lot. I think Hugh Freeze, Lane Kiffin, names like that are should be seriously considered. I frankly think Hugh Freeze would be a really good fit out there.
Yeah, Hugh got himself in a mess over there in Mississippi, but other than that, I mean, he seems like a good guy.
Well, listen, I don't want to persuade anyone because I know Hugh Freeze very well, and I was in Oxford about a year ago, and we went out and had a long dinner, and he laid it all out for me, and he's laid it all out for the audience on this program, and and I'm not trying to sound like a minister, but he's a human being. He made some pretty bad mistakes. He asked for forgiveness, and importantly, his wife stayed with him. And they are still together. Now, that doesn't mean anything. All that means is that he got past it. And I think he had genuine remorse. He gave up a great career. And I think it's not simple, but I think it's the simplistic way of explaining it is somebody who, found success, a lot of power, and he abused that. He didn't abuse it in a position like a politician. He abused it in terms of from a personal standpoint. And I think Lane Kiffin's another one who's a really good offensive coach, who's been a head coach now. Let's see, Lane's been a head coach 4 different places. He has experience.
I'd rather see Hugh Freeze come over there than Lane Kiffin. He kind of
I tell you what, I think Hugh's a better fit. Lane Kiffin would be a good coach somewhere. I think Hugh Freeze fits well into the Arkansas mentality because he's from Mississippi. He's worked in Memphis. He's at Liberty now. Yeah, I have a hard time believing Liberty University would have hired Hugh Freeze if they were concerned about the image and the reputation that he has.
Well, I agree. That's my alma mater, Liberty University.
Well, you know it better than I do then.
Yeah. Lane Kiffin doesn't really seem like an Arkansas kind of guy. I don't.
No, I'll be honest with you, he doesn't.
But
well, Tony, thank you. Listen, I'm not campaigning for anyone. I just know a good coach when I see one, and I happen to think Hugh Freeze is a tremendous coach. Now, I'm a fan of Norvell. I think Matt Campbell's name has been mentioned. I think he would be phenomenal. I don't know if you can get Matt Campbell. You've already gone for the hot, young offensive mind in Chad Morris, and that didn't work out. I'd be a little more careful this time around. Brody Miller joining us. Brody, let's talk about where LSU is, and we all know they're number 1 in the country, but the attacks on the defense are coming fast and furious from our brethren in the national media, and you cover this team. I know there have been some dropouts, including Divinity, but what's going on with Dave Aranda's defense?
It's really tricky, right? And it's been hard to pin down because there are so many areas where this defense has been fantastic and so many spots where you have to give them credit. Shutting out Florida the final 25 minutes of that game. I mean, Auburn's not a great offense, but holding them consistently all game in a top 10 matchup. I think you have to give them a lot of credit for the fact that they held Alabama to 6 points of offense on for what it's worth, a kind of fluky touchdown in the first half and 2 yards per carry. They have spots where they look really great. And then they have spots, where they gave up 28 in the second half to Alabama. They had a 28-3 lead on Ole Miss, and Ole Miss just broke explosive play after explosive play. And then you go back to, Texas scored every drive of the second half. Vanderbilt had a few explosive plays. It's just kind of a hot or cold defense, and I tend to give them the benefit of the doubt of saying this is an LSU team that, compared to all the other top teams in the country, has played far more, top 10, top-tier games this season. So it's a little tough to go by, aggregate stats when you're looking at that, when it's like, okay, you just played Alabama and Auburn in 2 straight games. You might get a little sloppy against an Ole Miss. It's a little tricky to be too harsh on them. I think they're really good at stopping the run in the middle. They have a really good outside defense, in terms of the perimeter of stopping, with Christian Fulton and Derek Stingley. Their main problem is they allow explosive plays. That's been the key thing all season. And I think that goes to some tackling issues, maybe a little bit of fatigue issues where this up-tempo offense has a factor in there. I think there's a lot of things that are kind of coming together to make this happen, but I just tend to prefer to judge a defense by how it looks in the games where it's really locked in. And I think it's a good defense. It's not a great one. It's not as good as Ohio State's, Clemson's, or Georgia's, or any of these teams, but I think it's a top 25 defense.
Let's talk about the final 2 games of the season. I mean, this is always a predictable stretch. There have been years when the LSU-Arkansas game was much anticipated. I have to give Ed Orgeron credit. I mean, he said with a straight face how excited he is and his players are for this game Saturday night. You've covered a lot of college football. I mean, this is one of the worst matchups I've ever seen.
Yeah, the spread, the opening spread was the largest, I believe, in SEC history, or in 40 years. It was 46. Now it's around 44 points. I mean, this is as ugly as it gets. You have an LSU team that's dominated people for the most part as much as anyone. You have an Arkansas team that you've been around the SEC more than me, but it's got to rank relatively highly up there on weakest in the SEC history. I think Ed Orgeron's kind of gotten pretty good at knowing what buttons to press with his team and kind of what to say in the media and those things. So, for example, the Ole Miss game, after that game, past years I think Ed Orgeron would get really, really hard on his team after that game, but he knew, okay, team's already pretty mad at itself right now. He also knows they just came off Alabama. Ed Orgeron was actually really positive after that game of being like, hey, they're already going to be hard enough on themselves. I'm happy they won. So I think this week he knows this is a game where it is really easy to overlook Arkansas, really easy to start thinking about all these things like the SEC title game, college football playoff. I think this time he's using the Ole Miss game and what happened in that second half to be like, all right, you can't overlook this. And I think you'll actually see LSU kind of go out.
He's finished, and I would think even next week. I know there's a lot of revenge on LSU's mind about the A&M game, but A&M is a pretty tricky team. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, A&M's really it's not that different from how teams you have to talk about Auburn, where I think a lazy spectator will look at their record and say, they're not any good. But if you look at things like SP Plus or any of those metrics, they are I think in terms of just overall scheme of things, I think they're probably a top 25 caliber football team. They just have an absolutely brutal schedule. So they look a lot worse than they are. I'm not saying A&M's particularly great or going to give LSU a major threat. I'm sure LSU will be a 18-point favorite or something in that realm. But that's a tough team. And Jimbo Fisher, despite what you might think of him, he's one of the coaches that has proven he can have success against Dave Aranda. He's a coach that you never can really underestimate. And I think A&M has enough talent to make that game tricky. And as you said, I think it's a game where you throw all the rules out. There's going to be so much animosity in that game Saturday. You start with the 7 overtime game, right? Then you go to the post-game scuffle and the fight after the game between these teams. Then you go to Dave Aranda almost going to Texas A&M a year and a half ago and them trying to steal him. Then you go to some of the really intense recruiting battles between these two schools, like for Terrace Marshall. Then you go to the fact that LSU just stole Texas A&M's athletic director and Scott Woodward. So, there is just so much, just tension building up between these programs. And, I think it's funny how a year ago I think everyone was trying to force this rivalry, but it's pretty clearly a rivalry right now. So that game's going to be tricky.
Joe Burrow chasing yet another record here in the SEC. It has been a record year for young Joe. Looks like the favorite for the Heisman with 2 weeks remaining. Teams in the SEC championship game. I'm reluctant to characterize the season yet, but if he checks all the boxes, guys, he's going to go down as this is going to go down as one of the greatest seasons ever.
No doubt. I don't know if he'll catch Drew Lock. I think we might. Ed Orgeron was talking. We might see a lot of Miles Brennan on Saturday if they're up big against Arkansas. So I don't know if he gets 7 more to pass Drew Lock this season, but an incredible season. He's the story of the season. When you think about the 2019 season in the SEC, one of the first things that's got to pop in your mind is Joe Burrow.
Yeah, not just the SEC, college football. He's going to go through. If he gets through, wins the SEC championship, wins the national title, Paul. If they check all the boxes, is this the greatest season? I know it's premature.
Yeah, it's always hard to know, but I would say yes.
People have been questioning too if Joe Burrow should be like a top 10 pick. And do you think if he checks all those boxes this year that his draft stock will skyrocket up and could?
It already has. Listen, I like it or not, I hang out with these NFL guys all week, and they have Joe Burrow ranked as the best quarterback, and I would say right now he's number 2 behind Chase Young on the big board. Greg McElroy joining us from Baton Rouge. Normally LSU-Arkansas is a traditional rivalry. This year, tell us what it is, Greg. Good afternoon.
Good to be with you, Paul. Well, I think everybody's kind of anxious to see how LSU looks defensively. You heard Ed Ashoff there a second ago talking about how they really struggled with quarterback run game last week against Ole Miss, and I think it's gotten everybody's attention and really has the #1 team in the country on high alert, which is kind of unusual. We know the offense is great. We know they're going to manufacture plenty of points, but they could be facing against another mobile quarterback tomorrow, depending on who Arkansas goes with the quarterback. So they need to find some answers for the quarterback run game, or else down the road against maybe the likes of Clemson, against the likes of Ohio State, or even Georgia in the SEC championship game, they're certainly going to have to account for the run game and be a lot better than they were.
Let's stay there for a second, Greg, because everyone thinks they know what's going on or what's going wrong with LSU's defense. We're so used to elite defenses. What's different this year?
Well, I think it's a few things, Paul. I think they've had a couple guys that have been banged up. Grant Delpit hasn't been at 100% hardly at any point this season. Got a little banged up in camp and hasn't really been able to play at the All-American caliber level that we've come to expect from him. They do miss Devin White to a certain extent in the middle of the defense. And if you look at those two linebackers, they've played well and have had moments. But there's always a guy in position to make a play, Paul. But for whatever reason, they just haven't done it very consistently throughout the course of the season. Really, if you look at each individual part, the talent level is exceptionally good. The problem is that when those 11 parts come together, it hasn't necessarily lended itself to a lot of success on that side of the football. So I would expect their best performance defensively tomorrow, to be frank. I think they've worked on a lot of things over the last 5 days. They've really obviously gotten the players' attention with the performance last week. And let's give Ole Miss credit, too. Ole Miss did a lot of really interesting things with the quarterback run game last week. So they've definitely had some ups and downs. The problem is they haven't been able to put 60 minutes together, because if you look at them in 30-minute increments, there have been moments of greatness from this LSU defense. They just want to see a 60-minute performance, and I think there's a real possibility of that coming to fruition tomorrow.
Let's spend just a second, maybe not any longer than that, on Arkansas. What do you sense from Arkansas? Not so much now, but in the future. I mean, they're in the middle of a coaching search. What do you hear?
Yeah, and Paul, to be honest with you, I know Arkansas has not had the season that their fans would expect. It's not what Chad Morris expected. And if you look at their personnel, I actually think they're better than they were last year. The problem is when things have gone sideways, they haven't really had anybody that's been able to right the ship. They've been kind of changing quarterbacks. They've played 4 different guys over the course of the season, and you just can't do that, not in the SEC. And frankly, along the offensive line, they've had a lot of struggles. But if you look at their offensive skill, they have an excellent running back in Rakeem Boyd. They have really good young wide receivers, young personnel that are going to be great players in the years to come. And on the defensive side of the football, there's just not a lot of things to like right now. They don't tackle well. They don't leverage the football. They have some decent players at the second level, but for the most part, those players aren't good enough to overcompensate for some of the mistakes that get made elsewhere. So they have a lot of problems, and whoever's stepping into that job, whoever it may be, I think that they are going to be stepping into good offensive skill, but a lot of things to figure out on the defensive side.
The LSU Tigers going to war. 1, 2, 3.
Game of the century, part 2. Burrow throwing. Touchdown, Tigers! Tigers win! Tigers win!
I'm happy for our team in the great state of Louisiana. It's been 8 years coming, man. Go Tigers.
What came out in that moment?
8 years is a long time, and you hear it every day. Coach, you got to beat Alabama. Coach, you got to beat Alabama. You know, I think everything is a process. I think everything happened for a reason.
Your first head coaching job, Ole Miss.
Yeah, pedal to the metal. I'm going to go as hard as I possibly can. Coach Carroll told me, he said, Ed, now, your words as a head coach are stronger than an assistant.
That was Pete Carroll's advice to you?
Yeah.
How would you say you followed that advice?
0%. I just said, well, this is the only way I know how to be. I hadn't been successful being a hard, get-after defensive line coach. So I was going to be a hard, get-after football coach. It didn't work that way.
Egg Bowl, 2007. Decision to go for it, midfield, 10 minutes to go.
Yeah.
If you get the first down here, you can chew up another 3-4 minutes. You were saying, you ain't going to chew it up now.
I should have punted. It was a very, very emotional decision. Once that happened, they let me go. That happened for a reason. I mean, I'd be here today if we made that fourth down.
Hey, ball's going outside. Give him a reach. Double team. Come on. Get the
How are you most different as the coach of LSU versus SC versus Ole Miss, Ed?
Get a great staff. Get the best and let them coach.
Why is that hard to do?
Well, you know, when you first become a head coach, you don't know, man. You want everything to be perfect. You want everybody to be like you. You want everybody to work like you. And then you break people. You got to let them be themselves. Well, thank God for me being the head coach of Louisiana State University, and actually give me the words and the wisdom to guide this team.
Edo is really one of the great stories in all of college football. Just go back 3 years. Back to when LSU hired him. Didn't all of us just think LSU was settling? Oh, bad move, LSU, hiring Ed Ogeron. No, that's our bad. 29-7 in his 3 seasons as full-time head coach. Meanwhile, that other guy that LSU fans thought they had to have, I think Tom Herman's his name. Yeah, 23-14 in that span at Texas, if you're interested.
Arkansas and LSU, you know this is poised to be the biggest favorite an SEC team has ever been in a conference game. LSU and Arkansas.
Arkansas
coming up.
Arkansas, LSU. Guys, we got to remember, this is a big rivalry game. These teams do not like each other. Marcus, you can tell us all about that. Arkansas is going to come ready to play. Do they have the talents? Do they have the athletes to possibly stay with LSU for a couple of quarters? And what is their mentality going to be like? They lost their coach. There's a lot to figure out with the Arkansas program.
The boot is at stake.
You know, in LSU's last game against Ole Miss, they gave up over 400 yards rushing, over 600 yards of offense to the Rebels. The old Coach O would have chugged a mouthful of kerosene, spit a ring of fire, and challenged every tackling challenge pansy to come in for a little bull in the ring to figure out how it's done. But this Coach O felt like his team needed a little pat on the back, a little lift, a little reassurance. It's good to be number one, isn't it? Tom Luganbill with Coach O.
Well, Coach, you got the number one team in the land, and so many people are talking about the offensive side of the football. But how would you assess the defensive side of the football here with a couple games to go?
Yeah, I think we're fine. I love our defense. I love Dave Aranda, one of the best in the world. I love our coaching staff. We just have a couple adjustments to make. Ole Miss made some big runs on us. We're going to fix it, and I believe in our guys.
Your team's in a position that maybe they haven't been in before, and now they're dealing with success. What's been your approach to keep this team on the right path?
You know, think about fundamentals, about technique, about the daily process, about today is Focus Friday, and taking it one game at a time.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Go Tigers.
See the largest point spreads in SEC games? LSU, they're a 42.5-point favorite. That thing goes up. That might eclipse the Florida-Vanderbilt game, which, by the way, HBC Spurrier only won by 7. Okay. You touched on this last week.
Yep.
You concerned with LSU's defense still?
Very concerned. Yeah, ever since the Texas game, I think because people became so overwhelmed by the offense and what Joe Burrow and those guys were doing that they really didn't pay attention to how the defense has been getting shredded in big games. And then last week against Ole Miss, Plumlee ran for 4 touchdowns, and he ran through and away from their defense. This is a team right now that if they have an average day on offense in either of these games, they definitely can lose. Maybe a defense like Georgia can give them problems.
No question about it. As powerful as LSU offense is, their defense is a major concern. Against Ole Miss, they gave up 614 yards. Wow. And 37 points. Now, there's an old adage that says defense wins championships. LSU hopes that's not true. Because if it is true, they're not going to win it.
True.
I might be on an island here. I agree with you guys. They have not looked great up to this point. The defensive line is not what LSU's defensive line has been in the past. They have 5 sacks collectively just from the defensive line. That's not good. Here's the thing. They've been beat up in the secondary. Grant Delpit, one of the best players in the country, has been dealing with an ankle and a thigh bruise. Not making excuses, just a reality. They're playing with a 3rd safety right now. Once they get healthy, they get ready for these last couple games against A&M and then Georgia. I think this defense is embarrassed. I think they have a lot of pride, and I got a lot of confidence in Dave Aranda, who's one of the top defensive coordinators. They're going to start to play better and better. What they've done up to this point has obviously not been good, but I don't expect that's not who they have to be moving forward.
Now, Arkansas comes in there with old Barry Lunny as the interim coach. You know, Barry Lunny as a quarterback has a win in Tiger Stadium. In fact, he was 2-2 as a starting quarterback.
This week, Houston Nutt contacted by Arkansas to see about that coaching opening, the head coach opening, of course. He said, look, I know they're talking to quite a few other people, maybe 4 or 5, but Houston Nutt potentially in the mix. Some Razorbacks fans weighing in on that. Some liked it a lot. Michael Divinity Jr. welcomed back by LSU. Of course, he returns to the team after missing 2 games for personal reasons. Coach Ed O, though, saying that he would not be eligible to actually play and suit up for LSU unless they were taking on the national championship game. That'd be the first time he would be welcomed back. This defense has tried to step up without him, though. And other news out of LSU, they'll be without offensive tackle Austin Deculus and safety Grant Delpit tonight against Arkansas. Freshman Mo Hampton will make his first start at safety, getting him some experience. And Missouri's leading receiver, Jonathan Nance, was arrested Friday morning for failing to appear in court for a prior traffic offense, but is expected to play today. They're playing for the boot today, LSU and Arkansas. Marcus, the
What's
boot
that
is
thing
cool.
mean, man?
First of all,
it's pretty heavy, though, right?
I was about to say that thing too heavy. They need to come up with it.
Did you ever lose a boot? Did you ever get booted?
We lost to them. I kept it 3 years, lost it 1 year, but it's a great trophy. I mean, look, I'm not gonna sit up here and act like it's all world.
I mean, what do you like? Your dog in the boot?
I mean, you just beat Arkansas. It's the state line, I guess.
Okay, well, LSU has 4 wins this season against AP top 10 opponents, 2 more than any team in D1. After hosting Arkansas this week, the Tigers finished the regular season against A&M, the last team that beat them. Tom Luganbill catching up with Coach Edo.
Well, Coach, you got the #1 team in the land, and so many people are talking about the offensive side of the football. But how would you assess the defensive side of the football here with a couple games to go?
Yeah, I think we're fine. I love our defense. I love Dave Aranda, one of the best in the world. I love our coaching staff. We just have a couple of adjustments to make. Ole Miss made some big runs on us. We're going to fix it, and I believe in our guys.
Your team's in a position that maybe they haven't been in before, and now they're dealing with success. What's been your approach to keep this team on the right path?
You know, think about fundamentals, about technique, about the daily process, about today is Focus Friday, and taking it one game at a time.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Go Tigers.
Hey, let's take a look at the smoothest play brought to you by Velveeta. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson became the first LSU teammate with 100 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns in the same game as the Tigers outscored Ole Miss 58-37 last weekend. During the game, they also became the first LSU teammates to surpass 1,000 receiving yards and 10 receiving touchdowns in the same season. Now, I want to point out a number because here's the thing. When we're talking about a team that will potentially have a chance to play in the national championship, we start to break them down at a minute level. We try to find things that are wrong with them. I don't want to make any mistake here. LSU is great. They are deserving of the #1, maybe #2 spot, depending on who you ask. But, Marcus, there is cause for concern around their defense. Their offense has been exceptional. What are your thoughts, though, about their defense at this point in the season?
Ecstatic about what the offense is doing. The defense is terrible right now. That's just what it boils down to. So this is, and we talked about it earlier, like when you look at the things that are transpiring, though, it has a lot to do with positioning and where you need to be. Now, this is a head-on-the-head line of scrimmage play. Obviously, LSU has everybody up because Alabama is backed up, and then tackling has been one of their issues as well. So you got to get that fixed. Here, you see how much time Tua has in the pocket. You have to find guys that can win one-on-one pass rush to get guys off the ball that long. That was almost 5 seconds that he had. You can't do that. And then here, just eye discipline and being out of position. You see the linebacker and Grandale Pitt both in the same gap, and you can't do that. You have to play disciplined football. So the things are correctable, but I sat here 3 weeks ago and told you all that the things were correctable. They have to get that fixed because these 3 teams right here, they are going to press you in the run game more than anything. They can throw the ball. The 2 in the middle can throw it with anybody, but they are going to press. That's J.K. Dobbins, Etienne, and then obviously you go DeAndre Swift. And all 3 of the teams that foreseeably that'll be in the playoff the way it's structured now are going to test you at the line of scrimmage. And you have to be able to stop the run and play the run discipline. And this is the thing that's holding everybody back about LSU because the offense has been so prolific that they hadn't really been in a position right now where the defense became the reason they lost the game. Potentially between those 3 teams, it could be a reason they lose the game.
And I want to look forward to that Georgia game because I think the way Georgia plays defense and the way they possess the football, I don't think LSU is going to put up 45 points. It's not going to be the same run and shoot against Alabama. So if you don't put it up, is your defense going to come to play enough to be able to stop Jake? I think it's going to be an interesting matchup, but what it's going to give, and that's one of the things that I'm most excited about, is it's good on good. Right. The best offense against in the SEC against the best defense in the SEC.
Well, it's interesting. FPI actually says that Georgia has a 47% chance to beat LSU in the SEC championship if they were to face off. So they're with you. I mean, that's maybe a higher percentage than you might imagine considering how good LSU has been.
The conflict is in their identity.
Really too, yeah.
Like what Tim said, the conflict is the fact that Georgia is going to possess the football.
Yes.
Like when you giving up yards like that defensively, they are going to make sure they string out drives. That's what coaching is. Why would you give Joe Burrow the ball 15 times in a game when you don't have to?
Cut the possessions.
That's what teams are going to do.
Cut it down to 9.
So, Paul, you've heard from LSU fans all week long, and obviously they've talked a lot about that Ole Miss game and the points that they gave up. What have they said to you, and how are they feeling about their team right now?
Well, I think some of the glow that we saw primarily on Marcus Spears' face after the Alabama game has dissipated just a little bit, and it comes from two places. It comes from over here. They are concerned about Georgia. They're also tired of hearing national pundits say that Ohio State is better than them and will supplant them, which is entirely possible with a win today against Penn State or next week against Michigan or in the Big Ten championship game. So it's really strange. LSU had the biggest win they've had in 7 or 8 years, and it almost seems like a lot of people are trying to rip it away from them, though.
But to your point, it's not like we haven't seen this before. Didn't we see Georgia hold Alabama when they were killing the world offensively to a low point total? Now, they end up giving those games up at the end, but Alabama wasn't the same prolific offense when they ended up in the SEC championship.
That's why a lot of people thought Georgia should end up in the playoff last year.
To your point, Laura, like this is not new. What we're saying, like this has nothing to do with the fact that LSU is 10-0. They're number 1 in the country, deservedly so, in what they've done. But we've seen Georgia make teams not be who they are in the SEC championship and in the national championship.
Kirby's done that for a long time,
Absolutely.
too.
Well, and Tim has a great point about Ohio State versus LSU that we'll get into later on when we talk about the playoff in more detail. Tiger Stadium is where we head now, and this, of course, the site of where the boot will be battled for today with Arkansas. And we'll see what happens with this offense. But look, Joe Burrow is the Heisman favorite for a reason. That said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire may be the most important player to this LSU offense. But when you look at the past 12 months for Edwards-Helaire, it's been difficult. It's been complex. Last December, he and a teammate were involved in a fatal shooting in Baton Rouge. They ended up having a prosecutor look at the scenario. They were cleared, and it was decided that they acted with justifiable force. They were not charged in this. Either way, complicated time for Edwards-Helaire and his parents. And his parents' strength was really what allowed him to get to this point where he is now.
At Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's electric.
Hand to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Breaks through, stays upright. Touchdown, Tigers!
Edwards-Helaire. Dragging Alabama tacklers with him. First down. That's the game.
You showed him. He said you wasn't no running back. Huh? That's what I'm talking about.
The biggest thing that everybody heard was they said you wasn't a running back. It was more than that for me. Yeah, I'm the shortest guy on the field, but I'm going to make sure like my impact is seen.
A father and son in a time-halting embrace. A relationship that was never guaranteed. Born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Clyde Edwards was 6 months old when his father and namesake was arrested and later convicted of attempted possession of 400 grams of cocaine. Clyde Edwards Sr. was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Shortly after, Clyde's mother, Tangela, met Shannon Helaire.
I wasn't missing, that father figure because I always had my stepdad.
When we started dating, all he could remember was Shannon. He treated him just like, that was his biological son. So he didn't have any questions. He never came with any questions or, like, is that my dad or, nothing.
He taught me pretty much everything, from being respectful to, looking a man in his eye when I'm talking to him.
We fished, we did a lot of things like that, but they were always involved in sports. And that's when I really recognized his craft because like a game of tag, he was never tagged.
At first, Clyde's mother thought he was too small to play football. But after a phone call with Clyde Sr. in prison, he was allowed to play.
The coaches, they would say, he just has it. He do things nobody could teach him.
Every year, I'd have someone tell me, hey, He did real well, but next year the kids are going to be older and smarter. He's not going to be able to do that. And every year he did it over and over and over again.
What sort of pride did you have, but also sadness that you weren't there with him to see all this?
It was, you know, it was bittersweet. You hear the stuff that your kid doing, and you like, wow. You know, one of your deepest dreams is to get out there and be able to watch this.
As his football prowess grew, Clyde Jr. felt something was missing from his name. Instead of changing it, he added to it.
I didn't want to drop Edwards because, you know, respect for my biological father, and then I wanted to honor the fact that I was raised by, you know, a great man, a great family, you know, with Elair.
I mean, you know, it was overwhelming to have somebody to want to do that, because you know that you've done something right. Because if you haven't, they wouldn't want to mirror you in any capacity.
At about the same time, Clyde Edwards was turning his life around. In 2014, he was released from prison early for good behavior after serving 14 years, and immediately began reconnecting with a son he hardly knew, starting with a promise.
I'm gonna be there no matter what, because I missed so much time, and I feel like I owe it to you to always be there for you. So, and that was like initial reaction, him pretty much promising, like, no matter what situation, I'll always be there.
It wasn't never strained, like, okay, well, I don't know you because you ain't been here. I guess it's just a bond knowing, you know, that it's my dad.
It's been completely no confrontation at all. I mean, we find ourselves high-fiving, and most home games were next to each other, and it's almost a chest bump.
The celebrations moved from the stands of Catholic High School to Tiger Stadium at LSU, where everyone could see the hyphen in his name, a short, straight connection between two fathers who have taken different paths to support their son.
It makes me proud, man, knowing from where I've come from and what I've been through. You know, words will never be able to completely explain the joy.
The first time that I saw this was in New Orleans at the BYU game, because he always said he wanted to go to LSU. And they always said, well, yeah, he'll probably play D1 ball somewhere, but he probably won't be at LSU. And I knew he could. I was overwhelmed with pride to see that he did it. He did it. He did it.
What an amazing story. And one of my favorite things about Clyde's mom is that when he was playing Pee-wee football, every time he would run with the football, she would run with him, keeping right up with him along the sideline. Just an incredible story about their family.
True freshman at quarterback tonight here on the road. But again, LSU will start on offense. Clyde Edwards, Elair is deep, and Limpert will kick this baby off here at LSU. Waving for the fair catch, and it will come out to the 25, and here comes Joe Burrow.
Down and score. A few plays later, it comes to fruition as Burrow hits Chase for a big touchdown early as the Tigers take the lead. Come back to a crowd like that.
Meanwhile, KJ Jefferson, the true freshman quarterback, able to move the chains, hits Mike Woods. Edwards Elair on the carry off the right side, stacked up after minimal gain.
They're trying to challenge, be aggressive and physical with these receivers.
Jefferson to throw pressure off the edge. Jefferson throws it deep into traffic, and it's pulled in at the 10-yard line by true freshman Treylon Burks. Gain of 31.
That was a great catch. A good job, too, by Jefferson. You see the upfield rush. Jefferson dips his shoulder, buys a little time.
For a 24-yard field goal try. And so Arkansas able to get something out of it after that long pass play. Jefferson to Burks, and it's 7-3 LSU.
His legs were the difference against the Tide, and big reason why they've been very successful in extending drives.
Burrow dumps it off to Edwards-Helaire here. Not much, maybe a couple. Good defense that time by Bumper Poole.
With Edwards-Helaire out of the backfield, he's just so undervalued in the passing game.
So it is a first down, and Burrow in trouble, dropped by Jonathan Marshall at the 29-yard line. That is a 6-yard loss.
It was a really nice job. You watch him, he's going to work around the edge. As the center tries to block back to him, he's behind him before the center can reach, and to stay in this game, 5 needs to have plenty of opportunities.
Obviously, 3rd and 16's asking a lot here. They do screen it, though, and Boyd gets a block. Look out! And he got the first down into LSU territory. That was a great play call and execution. A gain of 27 for Boyd.
Look at all this flow defensively from LSU. You'll see a bunch of defenders start working to the left because of the motion, and as a result, you just sneak Boyd right out into the right flat. Backers at home and not chase the bait.
Here's a reverse. Burks looking to throw it, now keeps it. And boy, again, he stepped out of bounds, didn't know where he was on the field. A ton for the confidence of this Razorback team if they can pay off the drive with a long field goal. And Limpert nails it. So Arkansas within 1 of number 1 early in the second quarter.
Keep an eye on the one-on-one here, potentially with Chase on a fade.
So they hand it off, and into the end zone is Davis Price. His 5th touchdown of the season. No Michael Divinity, right? Suspended. Could be back for the title game if they get that far. Here's Boyd. And he's to the 32, so come up about 3 yards shy of a first down.
To the big fella up front. Let's watch his right guard, Damian Lewis, work. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a pancake as LSU takes control and extends their lead. 21-6 Tigers. That's where I want to throw the football.
Burrow passes batted down.
He was trying to go to Chase, who had an option route. You see Chase there in the slot, trying to work the middle of the field. That time,
Burrow to the air again, gets rid of the pass in time. It's caught, and it's another touchdown. Justin Jefferson hits Pater. 25 passes by LSU in that first half. Boyd trying to find some running room, and he's able to get a first down out to the 36. Yeah, KJ Jefferson, true freshman, looked like it for the most part in that first half. A deep ball here from Jefferson, and it's caught inside the 30. There's a penalty flag down. Traylon Burks on the catch. He puts one right on the money downfield to Burks.
Pass interference on the defense, number 5. Penalty is declined. Result of the play, first down.
It's on Kerry Vincent.
That's got to be a huge confidence builder now for this young quarterback, for them to just get some semblance of a positive play.
He's got 40 on the season, and he hits Jamar Chase into Arkansas territory. Chase still going. Finally wrapped up. The ball came out. They rule forward, progress dead. They do not. Arkansas has the ball. It's a turnover forced by the Razorback defense.
and it's as he's fighting to the ground, Curl has it right there. Is he down before the ball becomes dislodged? Of course, it's called a fumble on the field, so the replay review has to show indisputable video evidence beyond all doubt that the ball was in fact out.
Looks like it's starting to come out, but again, unless, like you say, Greg, it's unless you can prove that the call on the field was wrong, how do you overturn that?
Ruling on the field was a fumble.
Just hard to tell, where does that right elbow go down for Jamar Chase? Is that right elbow down before the ball becomes dislodged? He was kind of on Curl. Right there, is the elbow down, is the ball out? I just don't think there's enough to tell you for sure that he was down.
We were watching the Penn State-Ohio State game today, and there was a play that wasn't all that dissimilar from this, where we kind of thought it was out, but again, you know, can you overturn it with replay based on the angles you have? And that one was not overturned. And
I thought there was more evidence on that one than there is on this one.
So you see that left arm get away from his body. Is the ball moving at that point as he's traveling to the ground? It's really close. Watch the left arm on this angle.
This should never have happened, though. This should. I mean, Arkansas had an opportunity to get Jamar Chase down 3 or 4 times. And I mean, this is just fortunate if it works out for the Razorbacks, where, you know, Chase got an extra 15 yards after contact because Arkansas couldn't tackle him.
I just don't think there's enough to overturn. I really don't. I mean, it's really close.
Ruling on the field is a fumble. Arkansas will get the football at the 42-yard line if this stands.
After further review, the ruling on the field stands. First down, Arkansas.
It will be their first 3-year span without a bowl appearance since the early 90s. Jefferson's pass on the money to Burks. There's some young talent. Burks is one of them.
Jamar Chase is one of the best in college football. He might take home a Blitnikoff Award. I can tell you this much, his quarterback wouldn't want to expose him to an unnecessary hit. So this is probably going to be the last drive of the night for Burrow.
Keeping on the ground with Edwards-Helaire, and this is going to be a quick drive. What a move by Edwards-Helaire at the 10. Shook the defense.
Against a quality team in Auburn, but I still think they are within reach of the playoff. They just need a lot of help.
Starkel's pass is caught by Wood. So let's handle that subject, because
and take over what should be very big shoes to fill in Joe Burrow.
There goes Edwards-Helaire again. Out the gate. And gone. Third and 1. They run the true freshman John Emery. Breaks tackles. And heads to the house. Another LSU touchdown. Third and 2. Starkel facing pressure, and his pass is caught for a first down.
It's awesome.
We saw Mike on the way over here as Jack Lindsey. His first play of the year at quarterback is a run of about 30 yards.
Emphasize the line script won't be spread. They got to figure that out first, and then identify the best available. But I'll tell you who I would take in a second.
Lindsey wide open. Mike Woods, touchdown. Good drive by Arkansas.
Very nice drop. And Lindsey with a beautiful throw. Had a nice run. Get them into plus territory. And how about this? Little hesitation. Watch the hesitation on the right side. He'll settle and then go. Boom, there he goes, out the gate. Good job identifying it. He's not working against backups, by the way. You see Patrick Queen in there. You see Fulton in there.
I'm surprised LSU still has a lot of its starters in there.
Comes from Nick Saban's program, so knows how to get it done, knows how to recruit, and I think he'd be excellent if given the opportunity.
Ball gets kicked about 4 times, and Arkansas recovers it at the 11-yard line. Simeon Blair was down there to jump on it after it got battered around several times.
Am I going to have to do my demo again?
How to recover a fumble. This was interesting. This was really nice job by the kicker, by the way. It was right over the top. Perfectly placed, little touch. And just kind of bounces around, and obviously LSU unable to come up with it.
I'm still surprised that LSU's got starters out there on special teams. Develop some bad habits that carry over to next week by keeping these guys in there. I mean, you trying to get style points? I mean, right now, Whaley is into the end zone for the touchdown, and a lot of the first teamers on defense are still on the field for LSU.
You think they're better or not, they would have the more deserving moniker, and I think that there is some pressure to include a Pac-12 team that has proven themselves worthy.
Wow, how about that late pitch to Hammond's dangerous? Let's go to Matt in the studio.
But you also get to avoid Clemson, which is enormous, I think, when vying for a potential championship run.
Wow. Henry somehow got behind the defense.
They matched that effort, and they would be a more capable team offensively than Auburn is.
Lindsey to the air, and the catch is made. The clock will stop here to move the chains.
Television. I can't wait.
Final play, unless there's a penalty. There isn't. LSU wins 56-20. The Tigers go to 11-0, 7-0 in the SEC. They clinch the SEC West Championship. They will play Georgia in the SEC title. But first, A&M comes to Baton Rouge. ESPN next week. For Greg and Tom, I'm Dave. So long from Baton Rouge.
Let's talk LSU and Arkansas. We kind of knew what was going to happen in this one, right? Shaq was going to show up.
Shaq was going to show up and have fun when he got there.
Yeah. He's going to lift his cheerleader.
Get some shoulder work, a little military press.
That's it. And you know what Joe Burrow did? Joe Burrow.
Yeah, only question this game is how long are their starters going to stay in the game? How long is Joe Burrow going to stay in the game? 612 total offense for LSU.
327 yards, 3 touchdowns for Burrow, stayed in through the third quarter. This guy might be the team MVP.
Yeah, no doubt. We keep talking about Burrow, and he's the 4th quarterback now in SEC history to throw for 4,000 yards in a season. But how good is Clyde Edwards-Helaire been? 188 yards, 3 scores, LSU roll.
56-20. Coach, they want to celebrate tonight.
There was going to be not too much of a celebration to beat Arkansas. They haven't beaten anybody in a long time. So we were supposed to win that football game. And on to Texas A&M.
Number 1 LSU. These two teams we're talking about right here are the next 2 teams LSU plays. They host A&M next week, then they play Georgia in Atlanta. If they knock off Arkansas, that would clinch the West for LSU. Shaq in the house. Shaq picking up cheerleaders.
How high is she in the air, Dar?
89 feet.
It's growing all night long. Every time we talk about it, higher and higher.
Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, touchdown.
I mean, shouldn't he have led him a little more on that? What is Burrow doing?
I know. He's really hurting his draft stock. Probably won't win the Heisman now because of that underthrow. Yeah, well, he'll have to survive that. Tyrion Davis-Price into the end zone. 14-6 LSU. Yes, Arkansas had 6. Remember, first game since Chad Morris was fired for the Razorbacks. Barry Lenny Jr., former quarterback there, is the head coach in this game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had himself one heck of a night for LSU. He's had a great season, over 1,000
These
yards.
guys dance well, too. We need to do that in one of our little academy sports things later.
No, we don't.
No? No dancing?
No, I'd rather do more snow angels. Burrow to Justin Jefferson, 28-6 at the half.
They drew a flag for their dancing.
All kinds of flags flying there. And then you got Jacoby Stevens getting it done on the other side of the ball. 2nd and 14. He gets to KJ Jefferson, rips him down.
Waiting on the defense to step up. There's no question about it. And again, this is a team and a defensive plan today where you needed to see some positive things happen, right?
Too many good players on that side of the ball to be playing the way they have. Again, that's another positive to think about the collection of guys there and what's potentially able to happen if they can put it all together with Dave Aranda, who we know is an awesome defensive coordinator.
Burrow to Chase, touchdown. Burrow, 41 touchdowns this season. SEC single-season record, 44. Drew Lock, Missouri. Burrow will likely shatter that record before his Heisman campaign is all said and done. And then Jefferson, under pressure one more time. Stevens gets him again.
Havoc rate tonight, guys. Havoc rate. They literally created havoc tonight to build some confidence going into the game next week against A&M.
Yeah, you might be seeing early this week Jacoby Stevens as your SEC Player of the Week defensively. Edwards-Helaire, 188 on the ground on 6 carries. 6. What's that average out to?
It's 31.3, Dari. That's off the top of my head.
Is that good?
Repeating, of course, 31.3.
Well, you're a numbers guy. I know that.
I'll tell you what's incredible.
Here's
about
an 89-yard run.
That helps the average a little bit.
But you know what? We saw earlier on the highlight, he gets in the open field, he shakes down a safety. Now he hits the ball on the perimeter. He outruns people. He's got power. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. This guy, I mean, a year ago, who heard of this guy?
They were talking about the preseason. He was going to get phased out with a pair of young freshmen that were going to come in and take his job. All he's done is delivered all season long.
LSU, by the way, the first SEC team ever with a 4,000-yard passer, a 1,000-yard rusher, and 2 1,000-yard receivers. That's what they have. Here's their coach.
Think about this. First time in SEC history that an offense has a 4,000-yard passer, a 1,000-yard rusher, and 2 1,000-yard receivers. Excellent job. Excellent job by offensive staff and excellent job by players. Really, really proud of our football team tonight. I thought our defense played a lot better. Obviously, we had a couple of bad snaps at the end. We should have had a better plan for that onside kick. We should have put a guy in the middle. We did it the second time, but I thought overall our team played very well. Clyde, excellent again. The receivers, excellent again. The offensive line struggled at the beginning of the game. We had a couple of protection problems. We fixed it. Give credit to James Craig. I thought we fixed it. We did a great job. Overall, 11-0, proud of this football team, but we're not done yet. And there will be no celebrating tonight. We're going to celebrate the victory. And on to Texas A&M next week. We're going to be ready to play that football game.